Hi, everyone. I'm Diana White. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this conversation with the creative team behind Red Notice. Joining us today are three individuals that received the p.g.a mark on the film: writer, director, and producer Rawson Marshall Thurber, producer Hiram Garcia, and producer Beau Flynn. As always, I would like to thank Netflix for making this panel possible for the Producers Guild. And it is my pleasure to introduce and welcome our moderator, Todd Garner. Todd is head of Broken Road Productions and is a veteran producer who has developed, overseen, executive produced, or produced well over 170 movies in various capacities throughout his career. Todd, thank you so much. I will let you take it from here.
Well, hello, gentlemen. Congratulations on your movie. What an event. I mean, we'll go through the whole history and we'll go through how you guys pulled it off during these extraordinary times. But I want to start a little further back and a little broader, because being a producer, when we look at guys like you three, we think, God, they just get all the great IP. They have their pick of anything they want. They can, you guys have done, Rampage and Black Adam and Jungle Cruise and all these movies. But Rawson, this is for you first, and Hiram for you second, because you also have done this. You come up with your own IP, and as an independent producer, that gives me hope that I don't have to have a fucking comic book to make a movie. No offense, Beau and Hiram, but like, Rawson, walk me through. Because, look, I do comedies. You started in comedy, and now you've kind of gone comedy, action comedy, full on action. Now you're kind of back to, a blend. Walk me through how you think of IP and how you create IP.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think I've always kind of come up with my own ideas, or at least rewritten other people's original ideas. So it's very, very rare that I would start with an IP, although I have nothing against IP. It's just sort of how it's worked for me. I guess my tastes run to the sort of crowd-pleasing, big tentpole entertainment, and so in order to do that as an original and on scale, the IP that you need is our stars. Dwayne Johnson is his own IP. Ryan Reynolds is his own IP. Gal Gadot is her own IP. So if you're gonna do original ideas at a scale that, like we did with Red Notice and like we did with Skyscraper, it really helps to have talent that function as their own IP. And I guess that's kind of my advice to other folks out there. Now, if you're gonna make something smaller, then maybe you don't quite need that sort of firepower.
And Hiram, what about you? Because you have created this thing that you guys are doing now called Red One, or about to start shooting. How do you think about IP when you're coming up with ideas and you're thinking about ideas? Because you guys are working on such a massive scale. There doesn't seem to be any worry about money or physics. It's just these things are massive. So when you're thinking about it, if you're a producer that's in the trenches, or someone who's coming up through the ranks, what do you do? Do you take a walk around the block? Like, how the hell are you guys coming up with these huge ideas?
Yeah, I think, look, it's always great when you can get your hands on IP. I think that's, the dream. But the truth is we've all kind of had to start from the bottom, and there was a time where we had no juice. And so as storytellers, as much as you'd love to go and get a big piece of IP, as a young producer in the business, you just can't help but generate ideas. And really, I do credit a lot of this to one of my best friends and longtime producing partners in Beau. And I remember when we were doing San Andreas, San Andreas was Beau's idea. It was this brilliant idea for a big movie, and it turns into this whole big movie. And I remember just telling him, I'm like, man, this is such a big idea. You should have done a little bit more, because I would love to have seen you attached to a little bit longer. And it's a little bit of the journey of the producer, right? You tend to be in fortunate positions where we're not writers, but we can come up with ideas. And then if we're fortunate enough to meet a Rawson who is a skilled tactician in writing, you hope they can go forth and create it. But as an early producer, when we really didn't have the juice to just grab whatever IP we wanted, I was just always generating ideas. And this is one of the reasons why I've had this idea at the time for almost 10 years. And to finally just have a window when the whole world got a curveball and we were trying to reconfigure Red Notice, to go and say, you know what, I'm just going to put this down on paper because I have a million passes to big writers when I sent this idea. Rawson's one of them. I had sent the idea to him. He's like, oh, sorry, man. It's like, I can't figure
we'll
it out.
Get into that. That is not exactly true.
But it's one of those things where you go, you know what? Well, maybe I should just try and, because you're hoping someone can ultimately flesh out your idea. So look, for a young producer, I always will say, just come up with as many ideas as you can and keep them and hold on to them. You never know when they're going to have your window to get them out. But, you know, it's also a nice exercise to pin yourself down, take a weekend or something and see how much you can flesh it out, because I was able to do that with the Christmas project and Red One, and it worked out well where we were able to sell it. But really, you know, as storytellers, you ultimately, the dream is to be able to hold on to it as much as possible and stay attached to it. And while we not might have the skill set that like a Rawson does as a writer, some of us will have the ability to at least flesh it out a little bit where we can at least put it on its feet and get it out there. And Beau was a big reason of, you know, he's inspired me to do many things, but watching him do that and what he did with San Andreas, I thought was brilliant. And it really helped me start to formulate my own ideas and try and hold on to be able to put him on his feet at a later time.
Thank you. And Beau, you've worked on every end of the spectrum. You've made tiny micro budget movies early on in your career, and now you've made the biggest movie you can possibly make ever. So you've been and everywhere in between. Walk me through, just, you know, generally, what's the difference of producing a very small indie that you're grinding for dollars and you're really trying to, you know, pull out strings, and a movie where virtually you control an army that you probably could invade a small country and win?
Beau, tell them about when you produced Spartacus. First, I'll start with Spartacus, and then.
That didn't work out so well. Spartacus worked out better, and then Ben-Hur was really really kind of got my bones. But I'm hanging in there. I'm only 51. But no, that's a great question, Todd, and actually is a real reason, to be honest with you, why I felt like I love the indie film space. I love the flexibility of storytelling in the indie film space, where it's anything goes, or just make a movie around a character or a very small, narrow story, and really have the freedom to make a film. But over time in the indie film world, I felt like the amount of work was endless on those movies as a producer. You know, I mean, you were doing every job. I swore, and this, you know, I have immense respect for post-production supervisors, but my first movie, I was the post-production supervisor. And I'm like, I am never doing this job ever again. And so that really pushed me to just try and figure out how to hire someone and hire a crew that are great at what they do or better than I do. But no, I really felt like I kept running into no's, you know, a lot early in my career, in terms of like, oh, I want to tell a bigger scale story. I want to make an action movie. I want to make a bigger, you know, adventure movie. And they were like, well, you've never done it before. So the answer is no. And the studio didn't hire me, even though the director, or I had the script, and then they put someone on it. So that was a big part of it, where I wanted to really have the ability to be able to make $1 billion movie or make a movie for 200,000. And it's taken a long time, you know, to do it. And I feel very lucky to be in that situation. But it really is one of those things where Hollywood tries to compartmentalize you. And as a producer, I think it's our job to make sure that that you aren't, and you could show you have different skill sets in all areas. And it's the same thing, Todd. Like, you've always been a master of comedy and concept comedy, but then you've also done disaster movies and action movies, and, you know, work with Michael Bay on all his movies. Like, I know you felt the same thing, and now you're in a situation where you can choose the genre and not have to feel like kind of having the system trying to press you.
Well, I think what people don't really realize is practically the skill set is the same. It's just on a bigger scale, more people, more trucks, more moving parts, but you're still basically doing the same job. And I agree with you that sometimes those smaller indie budgets movies are harder to do because you don't have the resources and the people to back you up. Now, Rawson, so this movie is a Netflix movie. It's fantastic. I was going, well, there's nothing else to do because you've done everything in this one movie. It's so massive. I mean, you literally go from Ocean's 11 to Thomas Crown Affair to Indiana Jones. I'm like, all right, well, fuck it. That's it. You're done. He's done it all. But
You tried.
This movie didn't start off as a Netflix movie. This movie started off as a pitch. And so walk me back. You did Central Intelligence with these two John. Oh, well, not with Beau, with Hiram and
All
DJ.
the time. I always say that I did Central.
And then you did Skyscraper with these gentlemen. Walk me through, like, first of all, how the hell did you have time to come up with this idea when you're making Central Intelligence and Skyscraper? And secondly, walk me through kind of how you pitched this to DJ and how that went down.
Sure. Beau, Hiram, and I were making Skyscraper, which is a pitch that I came up with while I was in post on Central, and pitched Dwayne, and he was in, and then Beau came on as a producer with Hiram and Dwayne and myself, and then so we were making that, and actually I was sort of tinkering in the back of my mind with this idea for Red Notice, and I remember distinctly Beau and I were up in San Francisco visiting ILM, going through some visual effects options with them for Skyscraper. This is very early on in the process, and we were up in San Francisco, and Beau, because he's an excellent producer, turned to me and he said, "So what's next? What do you want to do next?" and I said, "Well, I got this idea for this sort of heist movie with Dwayne," and I sort of gave him the one-liner on it, and he said, "I love it. I'm in." I'm like, "Great!" And then as we were prepping,
well, let me just interject 1 second. Two smart things for producers that are watching this. One, go to the visual effects meeting with your director, because some producers don't. So yeah, good shit can happen if you do that. And number two, always ask the question, "What's next?" Yeah. And then number three, always say, "That's great, I'm in." Oh, so three smart things that Beau did.
But I won't exactly say what happened, but I did give Beau the one-liner on it, and he's like, "That's great, but you've got a problem." And I was like, "Oh my God, I don't even have an idea, and I've already got a problem. I got notes." And Beau said this one thing, and it completely changed the idea for the movie for me. And I went, "Oh my God, you're right. I got to fix that." And if Beau Flynn had not said what he said to me on our Sprinter van on our way back to the airport, I don't know if Red Notice would exist. And that's the actual truth. So one of these days I'll tell you what that was, but it had great insight and it changed everything. And then, so while we were making Skyscraper in Vancouver, all of us together, I had a big whiteboard. Beau's office and my office and Hiram's office were all next to each other. And I would be scribbling kind of in the margins on the whiteboard, Red Notice ideas. And every so often I'd walk into Beau or Hiram's office and I would say, "Hey, you know that thing that I couldn't figure out? What if it went like this?" And they would go, "Great, keep going," or I don't know, or whatever. So it was just sort of like this kind of fun game to kind of play as we're making this other movie. Okay, and then I kind of worked through the pitch as we were shooting, and then they told Dwayne I had an idea, and then we all went, and which is, I wasn't ready to pitch, and they sort of like pushed me to the edge of the diving board, like good producers do, and it's like, and we all went out to dinner together, had a steak dinner, and I pitched Dwayne the idea for Red Notice, and Beau and Hiram and Dwayne having a great time. They're drinking, they're eating steaks. I have not touched I have an $80 steak that is ice cold in front of me. I'm like flop sweating like Albert Brooks in Podcast News, like pitching my little heart out. And Dwayne's listening, eating, Hiram was, and I could feel Beau and Hiram pulling for me. And then I get to a certain part in the story, and I wasn't sure, how this was going to go. And I get to this certain part in the story, and I see Dwayne look at me. He puts his fork and knife down. He stands up, he picks his napkin up, throws it on the table, and he says, I'm in. And after that, I got really drunk. That's basically the story.
Can I guess that's the moment where Ryan Reynolds says, "What the fuck?"
It is exactly that moment.
Awesome.
It is exactly that moment.
So Hiram, what's it like to go on one of these caravans and have one of the biggest spec sales in history to Universal Pictures and Legendary? Like, walk me through, speaking of Sprinter vans, like, how does this go down?
Well, first off, it's awesome, and because you dream of it with every pitch. But the one thing, and I remember coming off of this pitch, and it's such a testament to Rawson, and Beau and I speak about it all the time. It was the greatest pitch we'd ever been attached to. And look, I think I'm sure, Todd, you've been in that situation before where you're taking something out and the pitch is okay, and it's like, this is what happens in the first act and the second act, and then the third act, we're all going to wrap it up, and Rawson, to his testament to just his work ethic and his vision, was he pitched the movie. It was, you want to use 30 minutes of the pitch. Well, he used all 30 minutes, and it was such a detailed and distinct pitch that when you provide the studio, they had no option. Like you couldn't deny the pitch. It's like he told you beginning to end. You knew everyone's arc. You knew the big twist. You knew the fun, the set pieces. It was so well thought out that everybody you pitched it to, they all had the same reaction. Their face was blown away, especially at the twist. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm in right away. Rawson didn't give them a choice. And it really is just a great lesson, I think, especially, it was lucky Beau and I never had to do it to that point because Rawson's just a natural storyteller. But when you are with a writer, that extra work, you want to make sure you don't give the studios an option to say no. And I think the more work you put in and the more thorough you pitch the movie, because the majority of us, we've all been in pitches where, you leave it up to them. It's like, and this is kind of what happens. We wrap it up in the third act. To pitch the whole thing, it's awesome. And to sit back and see all the studios fighting over this, and it was the hottest sell in years. The town hadn't cooked like that in a long time. And to sit back and just be attached to that, it was really special. And it was what we always believed was going to happen with the pitch, but to see it actually come true was really awesome. And it was a special moment. Something we'll always remember.
Awesome. So Beau, most producers would kill to work with Dwayne, Ryan, or Gal. You guys had all three. How did that happen? How did you guys get three of the biggest movie stars on the planet? And I know it's a testament to Rawson's talent, but walk me through specifically how one goes about just being the most greedy bastards in history going, yeah, we got that one. Let's try to get one more. And then, okay, we got those two. Let's try to get one more. Walk me through how the hell does that happen?
Well, first, we're very, very lucky, number one. Number two, I always like to say, aim at nothing and hit it every time, right? So it's like, you gotta take those big swings. I mean, that's what we do. That's our job. And if we're not the ones taking those big swings, then who is, right? It's like, we're the dream makers and the rain makers, and we have to keep dreaming. And I know Hiram inspires me to keep dreaming all the time, and Rawson does as well. And Todd, our conversations are always really uplifting, because sometimes it's hard. The business sometimes wants to cut you out at the knees, so, some element of it. And then you kind of feel like, okay, maybe we should just kind of lower our goals and things. And then someone will come along like Rawson or Hiram or Dwayne and really be like, no, this is what we're going for, the grand slam. And I really think it's so important to think like that, because if it's not you, then who is it going to be? So we set out, we're fortunate enough to have Dwayne. And then the dream cast, who Rawson actually used in the pitch for the prototype for the Bishop, was Gal Gadot. That's who he used. So you could visualize it and see it in the pitch. And then when we were talking after the pitch, we're like, well, who should play the Bishop? We're like, Gal's got it.
You said it in the pitch.
You manifested it. You made it happen. And so Rawson got on a plane, again, just being the baller that he is. It's like, he's like, I'll take a swing. He flew in for 24 hours, maybe even less, and went and pitched Gal. And, she took it all in, didn't commit to the move or anything like that, and flew back. And then, we talked to the agents and we kind of kept going. And then she just said she was in, she had thoughts and she had notes. And that's another thing too, is Rawson is one of the rare, creator, writer, director, producers in our business. But he also really will listen to the stars. They understand their brands really well. And Gal had some great ideas. I have to say that role changed significantly from the pitch to the, to the movie, much more than Dwayne or Ryan's.
But one little thing on that is after we'd always talked about Gal for that role, and we'd talked about Ryan for the role that he ended up playing, which we can talk about in a second. But it's also a credit to Beau Flynn, because as soon as we sold, Beau got on the phone and called Gal's reps, and he knew she was in London, and he called me and he's like, you got to get on a plane to go to London, and I've never met Gal. And so that was really Beau and Hiram pushing that, so that was, they bought me a ticket and put me on a plane. And so I went, and I remember Gal was great. She was super smart. And she asked it was basically of all the people we pitched to, I would say Gal Gadot and Tom Rothman had the smartest questions about all of it.
That's your question. What is it? Can you walk me through your B. Arthur fetish with Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah, well, that's the last piece of the puzzle is so Gal said yes, the next day or something like that, or a couple days later. But I wasn't sure if she was gonna say yes or no. And I, called Beau right after the pitch, and I'm like, I don't know, man. And Beau's like, she loved it. She's going to be in. I can feel it. She's going to be in. And that's part of what I love about Beau and Hiram. They're both like such optimists, and I'm not usually that way. So it's really nice to have two people that you trust who keep you from spiraling in the wrong direction. And Beau is exactly right. So then I wrote the script, and I wrote it with Ryan's voice in my ear. He was the only guy that I wanted, the only person we ever sent the script to. And I sent him the script, and I wrote him a notes, because I'd known him in passing for a decade or so. And I said something like, I wrote you a fantastic role in this script, even though you're Canadian. I hope you like it. You don't have to, if you want to play the part, all you have to do is send me text me a picture of a topless B. Arthur, and I know you're in. But he was in London, and I didn't know that, so I sent it on a Friday, and he'd read it overnight. And then I woke up the next morning, my phone was in airplane mode, I turned it on, and a topless B. Arthur picture pops up on my phone, and I jumped out of bed and went running downstairs to my wife. I was so excited. And then
by the way, that's not the first time that picture has gotten that reaction.
That's true. That's your point. And then you can see how great Ryan is in the movie. He's so good.
Well, I'll say this, that is the job of a producer, is to make sure that we're undyingly optimistic, because your job and the actor's job is, you're putting your art up there, you're putting your heart and soul up there, and in the case of actors, your face and your body, and it's fucking hard. And so we have to be, the people that can continually keep pushing the rock up the hill. So Hiram, here's the $200 million question. A lot of people are very concerned right now about theatrical and the theatrical business, and this movie. I mean, just the opening shot of this movie with the drone following and revealing Dwayne is one of the biggest shots I've seen probably in the last 10 years. How did it go, and why did it go from Universal and Legendary to Netflix?
Yeah, it's funny, and it's everyone's concerned about theatrical and streaming, but I think as producers, we all should just be excited, because it's just more platforms for us to tell stories, right? Like, I think the more spots that we can have our stories told, the better it is for us. So we ended up at Universal initially, and fortunately, we have a great relationship with Universal, and I do think that during that process, we did start to feel that there were just some creative differences, and we wanted to take the film in one direction. They wanted to take the film in another direction. Universal was basically where DJ, myself, and Danny all got started. We have a great history over there, and we did get to a point where we realized we all didn't want to make the same movie, and that was going to be a challenge, and we had very specific ambitions for it. Netflix had always wanted the film as well, and Stuber, being the brilliant producer and head of a gigantic company as he was lurking and watching, and he could smell it. Universal was a really good partner to us, and I appreciate what they did, especially thanks to our history, because a lot of studios wouldn't do this. But we had a good conversation with them, shook hands, hugged. They understood. We know what you guys want to do. We consider you guys family. There's a lot more movies that we're going to make together. We're going to let you take this out of here. Go run with it. We know it's going to hurt when we see what this ends up turning into, but at the end of the day, we want to do what's best for you guys. And we know at the end of the day, it's best for business, because this is why we continue to make movies at Universal. So Scott was standing by, ready to go. He picked the movie up, and he was right in line with the version of the movie we wanted to make. And once we landed at Netflix, things really started to get going. And we'll always be grateful to Universal for being a great studio partner to us and friends, and allowing us to go put what was best for the film and put it at the studio where we could make the best version of it. And I think we ended up better for it.
And what everybody has to realize is Scott started his career at Universal. He was an executive there. He was a producer there. He's got a lot of friends, Donna and he are very, very close. And it's a small town, and we all have to be working with people. And so we all have to be civil, and the people that do that, and the people that are good business people and good people in general, generally have long careers. And if you're the type of person that tries to just get one and done, that's probably how your career is going to go.
Yeah, super classy, I thought, of Universal, the way they handled it.
Agreed.
Well, they're great people. Now, Beau, once you guys got the green light from Netflix, it was like smooth sailing. So why don't you briefly walk me through, like, like a few days. You guys had this in the can, and right? No,
Smooth sailing right down the hill.
You know, it's
right
funny. You know, it's funny you say that about smooth sailing. I swear to you, and I know Hiram is going to agree with this. Like the first 40 days of this movie was probably the best first 40 that we've ever had, right? I would venture to guess.
To be true, Todd. It was too good to be true, is what it was.
Well, I know, Hiram, because I was in Atlanta at the same time talking to Beau, going, "Hey, your fucking trucks are on my street. What the hell? Is there any place I can go in this damn city that you guys aren't?" And hey, let's grab dinner. We're like, "Oh man, we're gonna be here for a while. Let's grab dinner." And then the world implodes. So why don't you?
The world imploded, and we were
COVID at all.
Well, that's the thing, is like we were like, again, those 40 days, it was like the script was cracking and the cast was having a blast, and they were, we were hitting our marks, and it was a very ambitious film. But like once you get to day 40 on a movie that's meant to be day 80 and you're like right where you need to be, as a producer, you're kind of like, okay, let's not let to go too much, but we're feeling good. You know what I mean? It's like, and then all of a sudden Hiram and I were talking every day. We were like, didn't want to distract Rawson, keep him focused, but starting January 5th, Hiram and I were tracking, what's going on in Italy and watching what is happening in terms of as the pandemic is just slowly starting to build, start to grow. We knew we were going to shoot in Italy, right? That's where we were supposed to shoot the second half of the movie, in Italy and in Sardinia, and we had all different locations in Spain. This movie was intended to be 100% practical location movie. Like, it's funny because like a lot of people would be like, "Oh, there's all this, look at all this green screen, look at all this thing." We're like, that was never the intent.
Ever.
We had 40 days in Europe, which, by the way, as a producer is also a bit of a dream job, right?
Yeah.
To be able to go and take a movie and build there. We had scouted it. Hiram, Ross, and I had scouted all of Europe. We had crews over there already while the pandemic was starting to unfold. And then, we felt it coming. We were trying to scramble and move the movie around, move it out of Atlanta. Then we moved it from Italy to London because that was an island and that was going to be safe. And then it turned out London wasn't safe. And then we just eventually, kind of could feel it all converging in on us. The NBA shut down. Tom Hanks got COVID.
That's it. Once Hanks got COVID, it was over.
It's time to pack it in. It's time to pack it in.
And then on March 14th, we shut the movie down. And, we just were also focused on getting everyone out of London safely, getting our crew home safely, keeping everyone safe, keeping our cast safe. And we did. And then it was just like, and then we took the weekend off. And I'm not kidding you, Todd. Starting that Monday, Rawson, Hiram, myself, David Householder, who's a brilliant line producer, our first AD, we spent 6 months every day trying to figure out how to get this movie back.
And you know what? I was in the same boat. So I shot a movie pre-vaccine during COVID in Atlanta. And then I came back and did another movie after the vaccine. And guess what? You guys were still fucking in the street everywhere I went. I couldn't get away from you guys. You just kept shooting. But Rawson, walk me through, because I know you have said before that Netflix never said if we go back, they said when we're going to go back. So walk me through, after that 6 months, kind of the head shift of as a director dealing with 3 of the biggest movie stars on the planet, being under a microscope in probably the biggest movie Netflix has done.
Yeah.
Walk me through the responsibility of that and kind of how you dealt with that as the leader of the pack here.
Yeah, it was an incredible challenge, and certainly there's just there's no way it could have been. We would have been able to accomplish it without all the people involved, and that starts with Netflix and their support and their unwavering commitment. Ori Marmer, Andrew Norman, Scott Stuber, all the way to Ted and Reed. It was never about if, it was when and how. And it was an incredible, there's essentially 2 versions of this, right? There's the logistical challenge, right? Bringing a movie back at this scale during a global pandemic when there's no vaccine, there are no protocols, there's no roadmap. We had to invent it. Beau and Hiram and David Householder and everybody at Netflix had to come up with the protocols to keep everybody safe, which is an incredibly complex task. Then we had to have a world-class crew that was willing to pot commit like this, that was willing to sort of embrace that old adage of the show must go on. And they did. They all came to play. We quarantined. We bought out 2 hotels. Everybody quarantined and isolated and tested and drove themselves and really gave this film everything they had. And that's just to turn the cameras on. You know, and I'm skipping over a bunch of stuff. Then there's then of course, you know, as the writer director, there's the creative side. So now there's a bunch of stuff we can't do, a bunch of stuff we planned on doing. And how do we still deliver a fantastic film that we planned on going around the globe without ever leaving Atlanta? And that was hard. So we had a car chase at the opening that we couldn't do. So then I came up with an idea to do a foot chase in the museum. And I thought, okay, well, what if Ryan's character hangs a hard right into a wing of the museum that's shut down? So there's nobody there, and it's just Ryan and Dwayne, and they're 6 feet apart chasing each other. You know, and we
weren't allowed extras. We weren't allowed extras.
You couldn't have extras. So we had to bring like security guards, you know, that were sort of, you know, stayed far away. And then instead of a car chase, I came up with an idea for a scaffolding gag, you know, which was sort of a nod to Hong Kong Jackie Chan stuff. And Ryan really liked it because it had a Buster Keaton vibe, a Charlie Chaplin vibe to it. Anyway, so you do that. And then we couldn't have a car chase. We had an abbreviated car chase. And that ended up being strangely better for the movie, I think.
Yeah. It's a testament to you that you can pivot with such a big movie. These are things that generally happen on, you know, lower budget movies. You have to make these pivots and you can't afford things. And I mean, you could afford everything. And so you were having to pivot creatively because of the constraints of keeping your crew and your cast and yourselves safe.
Yeah.
Under the constraints of what Netflix and Hollywood was dictating, which is odd because where we were shooting outside of our bubbles wasn't that way. It was like, you know, life was pretty much going on as usual. So it's a testament to you guys and a testament to our industry that we hunkered down, regardless of what everybody else was doing. We hunkered down and said, we're going to follow the protocols and we're going to do things like not have extras, do a foot chase, you know. And so, and to be able to get through it and seamlessly get through to get through your movie and to create this, you know, such a great product is just testament to all of your guys' talents and a testament to you as humans keeping everybody safe. And speaking of which, Hiram, let's talk about Dwayne and guns. Because you know, it would be very easy for me to go, I'm not gonna have guns on my set, which I most of the comedies. So, but you guys really, you got a lot of guns. And so walk me through the thought process of that and the practicality of that, because there's been a lot of conversations about filmmakers saying, well, and by the way, it's never the filmmakers, it's always someone speaking, oh, I'm sure filmmakers aren't going to want to do that because it looks more realistic, or I'm sure it's going to be more expensive. Walk me through the practicality of your guys' decision to make sure that you're not going to be using real guns on sets any longer.
Sure. Well, you know, when we heard about the tragedy, and you know, we all circled up, and obviously our hearts go out to her and her family and everyone that was affected by that. But it was a quick conversation on our side of just circling up because we were heartbroken over it, and we take such great pride in safety and on-set safety. You know, we circled up. You know, Rawson and us had a conversation, and Beau, and really we do make a lot of movies that just feature firearms. But the truth is Todd, as you know, we work in a great time right now where, you know, post effects are as good as they've ever been. And the truth is so much of that is already enhanced in post anyway. It's, you know, it's so rare that you're just using what you're shooting in camera. And I mean, if a lot of people saw what stunt guys do when they put together a previs for you, where they have a piece of paper in the shape of a gun and they're putting in effects and sound, it's such an easy thing to do in the scheme of things when you're talking about what can possibly go wrong on the other side. So for us, it was an easy decision, and we all collectively, I know, you know, between Rawson and Flynn Picture Co. and $7, we all decided that, look, regardless of whether we're working together or not, we knew we were going to make this step going forward because the audience would never know the difference. The crew would know the difference via the safety, the crew and the cast. And, you know, leaning into guns that are either completely unable to fire anything or just a rubber gun was the way to go, and you can handle it in post. But you know, I know Dwayne was very firm on that, especially not only being a producer, but being an actor on the other side of situations like that. Yeah. And for us, we can always lead with safety. And again, we're very fortunate to have the technology we have today, and to do something like that in post is so easy compared to all the other stuff we're doing, that we'll always lead with safety and make sure it's taking care of the cast and crew as best we can.
And I will say that I think it's an evolution. I mean, you go back and look at the old movies in the 30s, they used to trip horses with wires. And then, exactly. You know, stuntmen used to just jump off of buildings with no wires. And there used to be a thing, and I'm sure Beau remembers this, where they used to explode a telephone pole under a car to flip it. Like, it's crazy. Like, and so we evolved, and putting wires on stuntmen, and you have to paint them out, and that's what we do. And it's safety. 100%. Safety is the
one thing about the gun thing I just want to add too, and I was so pleased about Dwayne and and Hiram taking that position, and so many other of our peers, Todd, and you and I have spoken a lot about it. Look, death is one too many on any set ever in the past or in the future. But one thing that doesn't get reported or talked about are the injuries from it. There's a lot of injuries that happen from real guns and and blanks and the wrong size charge or someone that's not equipped. Of course, we try really hard to work with the most skilled people, but it's asking a lot for all these productions to find the top armorer or the top prop master. There's just not that many of them out there. So I just think as producers, right, there's nothing more important than safety of our cast and crew, and I just think we have to try and make change where we can without impacting the final product.
Absolutely. Now, Rawson, you've gone through post. You must have your next big idea. Do you have your next big idea? And if
yes, I do. It's
can
called
you share with the group?
It's called a nap, a very long nap.
Rawson, if you want to get in a Sprinter van, I will absolutely say I'm in. So whatever you, I will try to.
Well, I knew Todd moderated this for a reason. I knew it.
Come on, he's like, love of Beau and Hiram. Come on, Rawson.
We'll talk after. No, I've got a couple things. Certainly, there's something I'm working on with Ubisoft. The Division, which is based on the Tom Clancy video game, stars Jake Gyllenhaal and Jessica Chastain. They're attached, and we're looking to make that. That's something I'm really excited about. But, who knows what might happen with Beau Flynn and Hiram Garcia and other movie stars yet to be named. So there's a couple of irons in the fire.
Right. And Hiram, you guys are in earnest prepping Red 1, not to be confused with Red Notice.
Yeah. Totally different.
For the record, I've been involved with Red 1 for like a decade, so I did beat. But Rawson is a much better producer director because he executed on the movie and got it made first. So
it's my color. It's my color. You can't have it.
And that is the next thing that you guys are doing, Hiram. That's the next thing you guys are doing.
Yes, that is our next feature, and we are in the process now of shooting Young Rock season 2, which is going in Australia, and we'll also be shooting an Atlanta unit as well.
Fantastic. And Beau?
We're in post on Black Adam, and we're developing Jungle Cruise 2 that we're really excited about, and trying to take more spinner van rides with Rawson Marshall Thurber.
Let's go. Tech Avail, unemployed.
One thing, Rawson, just look outside. There is a black Sprinter out there that I've been texting. Just get in it. We'll go for coffee right now.
I'm down.
One thing, by the way, for every producer that's watching this is exactly what happens. Just
how it goes.
We all just start to
free for all.
Feed on each other.
Yes.
Guys,
what were we gonna say?
Guys, this is a sorry, Beau. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add one thing because Rawson can't talk about himself this way, and I'm going to speak on behalf of Hiram and myself. Is as producers, a lot of time it's your job to say kind of like, I'm sorry, we're out of money and we can't do this, or we got to move on, or this actor can't do this, or whatever. It's like, I will say the second half of Red Notice, we call it season 2, which was during the bubble and during COVID, the first time pre-vaccine. It's like, and this, Todd, as producer, man, did Hiram and I have to come to Rawson all the time with like new no's and things that you can't do and things. And it's like, and really, I have to say, is like, I love Rawson so much for just having the ability to be like, all right, fine, I'll figure it out. Like, it's like, and that at the end of the day really is the beauty of what we do, right? As producers and directors and working together, you have to figure it out. Hopefully never on the scale of, an unprecedented global pandemic. But I know for Hiram and I, it's like, we're usually people who want to just say, yes, let's do it. But this situation was tough, and Rawson handled it so beautifully. And I really want to just make sure that that's been vocalized from us.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Now, I'm going to steal something that I use on my podcast all the time, which is my last question I always ask my guests on my podcast. And I'll end with you, Rawson, and I'll start with Beau because he's done this before. Beau, on Red Notice, best day on set.
Best day on set was easily day one on January 20th, because there was a lot of effort to get us there. And when we saw those three actors all come together and be on the same frame, that was a beautiful moment for Hiram, Rawson, and I, for sure.
Hiram?
Good call. For me, it was actually be the last day to have made it through what we did, to have come back at the height of the pandemic, be the first big movie, and to never shut down, which was a testament to keeping our crew safe, our cast safe. It was special because this was the toughest movie we all ever made, and to be there at the finish line and be like, wow, we made it. We all, if I had hair, it would have been great, but the fact that we never shut down, and a lot of other movies ended up having to because of the challenges, for us to do that, it was a testament to the team, and also Rawson busting his butt to shoot scenes in crazy ways to ensure safety. Some of the easiest scenes in the movie you would never imagine were so complex. So hats off to the team and to Rawson for being able to pull it off. It was really special.
And then we'll end with you, Rawson. Best day on set.
Well, I think Beau and Hiram both sort of stole my answers. Like,
that's what you get, buddy.
I know, going last. I should have gone first. Well, I mean, Beau's right. Like, that the first, there's one particular shot that I'd had in my mind for a long time. The moment that we cast Dwayne, Gal, and Ryan, it's in Paris. I'll leave it at that. I think you probably know the shot. And I had it in my mind for a long, long time. And then to see all three of those beautiful, fantastically talented movie stars step into that frame and deliver the moment exactly as I'd always hoped it would be delivered, but better. I was floating for a week. That was probably my best day on set. But the best moment for me was coming home to my family after being away for 90 days.
I'll bet. So I will also like to just end by saying thank you to all the studios out there for having the guts to continue on during this pandemic and put their money where their mouth is and continue to support movies like yours and movies like the movies I shot. It was not easy, and it was harrowing, and every person that's in that job, from Donna Langley to Tom Rothman to Scott Stuber to Richard Brenner to Toby to Jim Giannopoulos at the time, they just really were warriors and heroes. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of those.
And one extra thanks.
Tom Bailey and Alan Bergman and
Jen Salke, and another hug to a special shout out to all the line producers during this time who were unbelievable. David Householter, who was our line producer on the Jumanjis, he came onto the Red Notice team. He's family, but man, did he kill it for us. We'll never forget what he did for us. He led the charge, and the crew. We'll never forget this crew, what they sacrificed to help us finish this movie, and not being able to see their family for that period of time. So lots of love to everyone who's come together to help keep entertaining the world and keeping us keeping this business going.
And gentlemen, this movie is sorry, Beau.
Thank you, Todd, for doing this.
Thank you, Todd.
Yeah, thanks, Todd.
Gentlemen, this movie is a blast, and I cannot wait to see you guys break the internet. So,
Todd, and hopefully you'll let me and Rawson on your podcast one day, because you only use Beau, clearly. Thing of that thing. So when you're ready for the next level,
got to keep the bar low. Got to keep it low.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, boys.
Todd.
Thanks, guys.
See y'all later. Thanks, Todd. You're great.